Hello and welcome to the Salesforce.com API series, Service Cloud Console Deep Dive. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Chad Kelly. I'm a technical solution architect with Salesforce Services. I reside in Denver, Colorado, and I specialize in the Service Cloud. And joining me today is Clément Toussio.
Hi guys, my name is Clément Toussio. I'm a senior solution architect. I work for Salesforce Services since 5 years, mostly in Europe and living now in San Francisco.
Just a quick safe harbor statement. Please make purchase decisions based upon features that are currently available. Follow our Developer Force news. If you have questions during this webinar, please use the Twitter #ForceWebinar, Facebook, Google, YouTube, LinkedIn. So our agenda today is going to focus on leveraging the Service Cloud console as a framework to deliver a consolidated presentation to your users. In order to have tighter control over the user experience, we're going to go over some UI integration patterns available to you. We're going to talk about the Service Cloud console integration toolkit and why we think it is very cool. And demonstrate some real-world use cases that will resonate with your users. So if you're joining us today, you're probably interested in delivering screen pops, integrating your telephony with the Service Cloud, providing your users with the context that they need to improve efficiency, providing a consolidated view of multiple channels to your users. So at a high level, the Service Cloud provides a number of applications. We have a web chat agent called Live Agent. We have a cloud-based CTI adapter, which our partners have used to connect to over 80 different telephony platforms. We provide self-service via chatter answers. We offer knowledge, which is a feature that is a formal knowledge base. We're going to try to demonstrate that the Service Cloud console leverages everything you already know about Salesforce, but can be extended to deliver a full, rich customer profile. So let's talk a little bit about web technologies that are leveraged within the console. We take a lot from native Salesforce, but we also add a unique UI with additional flexibility. The native console is based on HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, and a JavaScript library called XJS, which provides a rich set of UI controls and widgets. Comment D is leveraged to deliver push notifications, similar to the pattern used by a Facebook or a chatter feed that shows new updates without a refresh. Obviously, Visualforce can be integrated within the console. Why use these technologies? These technologies are indisputable web standards. Or like in the case of HTML5, these technologies are changing the game in how developers deliver web content. We think that these skills are easy to hire for because they are standards-based. So in addition to standard HTML web technologies, the Service Cloud console also supports Canvas, which we'll touch on. And then moving forward, we're going to be supporting a new solution called Aura, which is our own UI framework similar to XJS. So let's talk a little bit about the architecture of the Service Cloud console. At its basic core, the Service Cloud console is an application framework. So this block diagram describes the various regions of the console layout at the app level and primary tab level. So the areas in yellow are configured at the application level and are presented for your users consistently throughout their day. The navigation tab is not customizable, but you can configure if you want it presented in which list of cases or accounts you want it to show. The application bottom bar can be enhanced with Visualforce that are presented with buttons on the click. So the next diagram highlights the sidebar, header, and footer components associated to a primary tab. And It's very important to understand at the center is a detail record, which can be an account, a case, a contact that was navigated to or automatically popped to your user after a call comes in or after a chat is handled. Areas in yellow are configured at the detail record level and are presented dependent on the context of that record. So it's meant to provide additional context for a detail record. For example, a sidebar could be a Google map that displays the location of a contact, or the header component could be some core details about that record that you want always visible no matter where the user navigates to. Now, it's important to understand that each one of these components are delivered via iframes, which is a web page within a web page. The reason why we went with the iframe approach is we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. Our customers have already configured standard page layouts and built Visualforce based on their own specific needs. The console framework allows the same standard to be used throughout the platform. Another benefit of leveraging iframes are that in addition to Visualforce and standard page layouts, content can also be delivered with external web applications or Canvas applications, which we'll get to. But a key gotcha resulting from leveraging iframes is each component is essentially a black box to one another. So we had to think about UI integration patterns to bridge these components together, and we'll go into detail on why we think we have a rich pattern of approaches for you to use to do this. So this is a configuration screen available for every page layout to configure the console. And while you may not want to configure every component, you can start to see that it does provide the flexibility to deliver whatever kind of unique presentation you want to display. So let's talk about some integration patterns. So within the console, you have standard Salesforce components available for you to leverage. So on the left here, you can see standard objects, custom objects, reports and dashboards are all available to you. But custom functionality is also available to you to extend the console to deliver some very cool integration and consolidated presentations. So for example, OpenCTI is our wholly based cloud telephony integration framework. That can be leveraged to integrate the service console with your telephony channel. Visualforce is a means of extending the console, but we didn't want it to be the standard. It's really more of a framework for you to extend and do some very cool integration and consolidated presentations. Canvas apps are also supported within the console. So all to deliver screen pops, communicate, and service your customers. So let's talk about the first integration pattern that we want to touch on is push notifications. This is managed via configuration. And what this allows you to do is to subscribe to a specific update to a field on a given object. A drawback of push notifications are that you're limited to 10,000 events during a given 24-hour period. However, it's a very cool pattern that allows your agents or your users to get a update anytime a record is touched by them, an external application through web services integration, or an update that they made somewhere else within the console. So let's show you a quick example of how you can leverage push notifications.
Thanks, Chad. So I'm going to get access to the first environment I want to show you. So this one is an out-of-the-box environment with only standard features in it. So as Chad said, so this left-hand side navigation and this bottom is configured at the application level. And here we have the detail of a case record with the highlight panel on the top and the interaction log at the bottom. And So what I want to show you, the first UI pattern is push notification. So the idea here is when you have different agents working together, if someone is just changing a case, the other agents may want to have the information about that. They want to be notified. They want to have something that highlights the fact that the case has been updated. And here, actually, we configure at the app level the fact that if someone changes the priority on the case and saves it, automatically, actually, on the left-hand side navigation, the list is updated. So there is a notification here. So you can see this line is just highlighted in yellow, and we can see that the priority here has been changed. So it's a very nice way to get interaction between agents in the console. And so you can have this push notification in the list on the left, and even at the record itself. So you could have a little header here saying, be careful, another agent is working as well on this case. And so this UI pattern is only declarative, so there is no programmation with it. So that was the first UI integration we wanted to show you.
Thank you, Clement. So another approach is an out-of-the-box refresh of custom console components. And this is delivered for you automatically whenever the detail or the center record is updated. It will trigger a refresh of all the custom console components that you have delivered. And the ID of the detail record is automatically passed to all those components to give the context that your constructor logic is requiring to render whatever kind of details that you want to render to your users. So the cons with leveraging this approach is that the refresh is only triggered on the save of a detail record, and a complete re-execution of the page controller and constructor logic is triggered upon this. So let's show you a quick demonstration on how we can leverage the out-of-the-box refresh.
Thanks, Chad. So now I'm going to get access to our demo environment. So actually, it's exactly the same configuration at the app level. The only thing that is different here is we customize a little bit the UI. So actually, we don't use anymore the standard header here. It's a visual first page. And same in the bottom here, it's a visual first page as well. And so by getting access to this environment, I just want to highlight something that Chad talked about earlier, is the fact that this console is made of different iframes. And if I inspect, for example, these elements here, you can see that we have this frame available here. And the interesting thing here is I can open it in a new tab, and this visual first page can work in a standalone way because it's using the case standard controller here. So just by giving the ID here is recognizing the contact link to that case. And actually, the second UI pattern I want to show you is this out-of-the-box refresh, meaning that every visual first page available in a component using the standard controller will be refreshed if we just update the corresponding case. Meaning, for example, here you can see the priority of the case is medium. If I just change the value to low in the case itself, by saving, every visual first page is refreshed. So now the priority has been updated. So this is another way, if you want, to just communicate between two different frames in the console.
So the next integration pattern we want to talk about is Salesforce database persistence. So we have all of these disparate components that are trying to talk to one another. How can they share context? And we saw it in the previous example. One way to share context is to really just persist data to Salesforce, to be read by those other components. So very similar to the pattern Clement demonstrated, He's updated the case attribute. That triggered a refresh. The custom console components were now seeing that new attribute and displaying it accordingly. So this is used in conjunction with the out-of-the-box refresh, but this can also be leveraged later downstream. You know, for example, if you want to have some kind of context rendered at some point, you can persist it to the case record, update the contact record, update a custom object, and then have your controller logic in your Visual Force page read it and perform logic accordingly. So the next approach we're going to touch on is we just want to highlight that the console supports Canvas. We're not going to go too deeply as it's covered pretty extensively throughout the developer community, but a clear advantage of leveraging Canvas is an authentication approach is available to you via our connected apps framework. So for example, you can leverage OAuth to integrate with a embedded Canvas app, and you have an authentication approach for you automatically, which is very unique challenge and very common challenge across enterprises we deal with. Events using Canvas app events are localized to the client, so they're browser-to-browser based events. So for example, you can raise an event from one area of the console and receive it within a Canvas app. So raise event within Salesforce and then receive it within your embedded Canvas app using a pub-sub pattern. You can also pass a payload, which can be JSON or string, to provide whatever context is required by that Canvas app. So some people really like this because there's no information sent over the wire. You can you can contain all of your communications from one app to the other within the local client. Okay, so let's talk about now the Service Cloud Console Integration Toolkit. What is it? It's a JavaScript library that can be leveraged as a communication channel that allows you to bridge these disparate components together. So why is it cool? A key challenge that every component has is it could be a different domain. You could have a Visual Force page as your header bar, as Clement demonstrated. You could have a standard page layout. Standard page layouts in Visual Force are actually hosted on different domains. You could have an external application. You could have your legacy accounting app embedded within the console that is residing on an external domain. This is very challenging for client-to-client communications because of internet and browser security. It's difficult to send an event from one domain and receive it in the other because that domain may perceive it as a threat. So what we did is we delivered what we call a cross-domain proxy. And what this allows you to do is do cross-site scripting across domains. So this is very cool because you can contain that communication pattern within your browser without sending in information over the wire. It's all local within the user's desktop. So that's why we think it's very cool. In addition, we have some other methods that deliver an approach to customize the user experience. For example, primary tabs and sub-tab methods. Those allow you to open tabs, close tabs, name tabs, style them, deliver whatever kind of unique presentation your requirements dictate. Computer telephony integration methods deliver an approach to raise and handle events from a telephony adapter. Our partners have already started using these events as a standard to raise events to deliver functionality like transferring, setting agent state, realizing when there is an incoming call. So the third column here, communication between components. The Service Cloud also has a fire event and add event listener, which are very powerful methods, which we'll demonstrate in detail.
Thanks, Dad. So right now, I'm just going to focus on the primary tab and sub-tab method, and I'm going to showcase a few customer use cases. And then I will talk about the communication between components, which I would say provide a new UI integration pattern, a much more advanced than the one we saw before. So regarding the primary tabs and sub-tabs, one very common customer use case would be that the solution must render a custom screen pop with several sub-tabs. So let's imagine you have your agent clicking on a case, and you may want to have different tabs and different sub-tabs opened automatically with access to some, I don't know, some research on Bing or the related articles. And so we can do that with the constant integration toolkit with the open parameter and open sub-tab method. And I'm going to show you what it could look like in the app. So if I close this case, for example, and by opening it, as you can see, I already have 3 sub-tabs opened. The main one is the case detail. The second one are some search results in Bing with a parameter given, which is the subject of the case. And then I have the related articles to that case. So what is very nice is that the agent, when he's looking at the case, actually, he doesn't have to click anywhere to just open the research on Bing and something. And if he closes the case, if he closes all the sub-tabs, so it's a huge gain of time for the agent, and you really increase the efficiency. So now, how did we do that? Actually, what we did, we overrided the standard case view page of Salesforce. So let's have a look at it. So if I go in setup and case and button link in action, as you can see, the view link of the case has been overridden by this visual force page, case handler. And what we did in this visual force page, if I open my exit, actually, it's a very simple visual force page in which actually we display the case details. So every standard page layout and related list will be available in this page. And then we provided a link to the Service Cloud Console Integration Toolkit JavaScript library here. And we added a few JavaScript lines that when the page is loaded, we open actually a sub-tab. And this sub-tab function is actually using the open sub-tab method of the toolkit. And this is the first sub-tab that provides a link to Bing and giving a parameter with the case subject. And when this one is opened, we actually open the next tab thanks to this little cutout here. And this is where we display the related article. So as you can see, that's very simple. That in terms of, I would say, business value, that's really awesome. So this one was the first customer use case. The second customer use case you could have is maybe you want to be able to rename the current tab, or maybe you want to I don't know, like dynamically in the page, if the agent is doing an action on the page or something, you may want him to remind easily which tab he was working on. So you have the ability to rename a tab dynamically using the set tab setTab little method. And actually, I'm already using it in this example. So when the two different settabs are loaded, what I'm doing, I'm just renaming the first tab with case with the case number. So this is why in our example, you can see that the first tab has this little name. And another way to just rename the tab or to give a name to a tab is when you open a sub-tab, you can directly give it the name you want. So when I opened the Bing link, for example, I directly gave the search result name. Now, the last customer use case regarding this first type of method, the primary tab and sub-tab method. This use case is you may not want the agent to be able to close a tab if he's working on it and if there are some unsafe changes. So a good way to do it is to use this set tab unsafe changes, which actually will just flag the tab as dirty, and then he won't be able to close it. So how can we do that? What I did for demo purpose, I just created a very simple Visualforce page, which is flagged as dirty. And in this Visualforce page, you just add a link with, which actually, when you click on it, just launch this little JavaScript method. And this method is just set the tab, use the set tab and set changes. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy paste this Visualforce page in my console, and you'll be able to have a look at it. So here's a link to my Visualforce page. And directly in my console, I can tap or pass an URL here, which provides me access to my Visualforce page. So if I click on this link, you will see that the external page is going to be flagged as dirty. So if the agent wants to close it, he actually can't. I mean, it's just being asked if you really want to do this action. And same thing with the primary tab. So this was the three first customer use cases I wanted to show you. And now we are going to see, I would say, the most exciting UI pattern you can have with the console using this Service Cloud Integration Toolkit. So go ahead, Chad, and tell us what it is about.
Yeah, so again, we are trying to communicate with not only components within the console that may not have context about what the other component is doing, but also third-party applications. And a way to bridge those components is via the fire event and add event listener methods that we touched on. So this is based on the Service Cloud Console Integration Toolkit library, which is tested across multiple browser versions. What you can do is add a listener within one component and then add a fire event within another and get those components to talk to each other. So multiple listeners can process a given event. No record storage is required. You can send a payload along with the event. So if you have context about a contact or an account or a case that you want to provide to your component to render it as needed, you can send a payload, which we'll show you. It's very fast and it works over that cross-domain proxy that I mentioned. So it's not only supported from one Visualforce page to another, but also from a Visualforce page to an external application, which we'll show you. Another really nice feature about this pattern is it doesn't require a full page refresh. So from a performance perspective, you can code that handler of the event however you want to, do a partial page refresh or just re-render a section of your component. Some cons are that the receiving page must be open in order to receive that event. However, multiple listeners can process a given event. So if you have a centered record and you want to somehow pass context to multiple custom components, providing context to that record. You can send one event and refresh all of them, or handle whatever kind of functionality you want to deliver. It doesn't persist once the page is closed. So this, again, whatever payload you send is all in memory unless you want to persist that to the Salesforce database or some other external application. So let's show you the fire event and add event listener in action with a couple of real-world use cases. So
the first use case I want to talk about is in order to facilitate a little bit the agent work, they're like searching a lot of information in the console, like searching for contact, case, etc. So you may want to have some fields like populated automatically in different areas of the console. And as the different iframes are quite independent, we can use the service cloud integration toolkit to have information transiting across the different iframes. So here, the challenge is, so the agent should be able to easily associate some activities to some contact records if used during the call. And so we'll use this fire event and add event listener method. So let's have a look at it. So I'm back in my console. I'm going to close this page a little bit. So I'm an agent. I'm talking with John Bone. And as you can see here in my, I would say, custom activity components, I may want to be able to refer to a different contact I'm talking to. Maybe John Bone is just calling to talk about one of his colleagues or something like that. So actually, you want to refer an activity to one of John Bone's colleagues. So he's going to look for Timber in the search. You say, oh yeah, Timber is actually working for the same company, so that should be him. Let's have a look at him. Do you log any case or something? Oh yeah, he logged the case like a few weeks ago. And then back on the case, talking to John Bone, as you can see, Timber is available in the list automatically, so the agent won't have to fill another lookup. So this is a way to really facilitate agent life, and here we have a great example on all the information transited between the contact record and this custom Visual component. So actually what we did here is we added a fire event method at the contact level, and we added a listener in this Visual page here. So you're going to ask me, yeah, but how did you add a fire event on the contact page here? Actually, we did a little bit the same as we did for the case earlier. We overrided the standard view of contact. Here, for example, in button listen action, you can see that the view contact has been overridden by the Visual page here. And if I open this contact override, as you can see, is when the page is loaded, we fire a contact detail event that is actually grabbing different contact information as the first name, last name, email, etc. And then we use the fire event method, and this event is named contact detail event, and we provide a string containing all this information. So this is in the contact Visual page. Then in the Visual page, in the Visual page of So in the Visual page of the interaction log, we had to have a listener, and this listener that you have here is referring to this contact detail event, and when when the information is retrieved, this listener method is actually calling an Apex method that is named populate what ID option, and this Apex class, this Apex method, sorry, is just grabbing the contact ID and contact name and putting it in the list. So this one was the first customer use case. And now the second use case is something a little bit more exciting. We showcase the interaction between, I would say, two Salesforce elements. But now, what if you want to include, I would say, a third-party application? Let's imagine you want to include your accounting system, or you want to include an ERP or any other external application, and you want to have the same kind of behavior. So let's have a look at it. So right here, I'm looking at my case. And so what I'm going to do is, for demo purpose, I'm going to actually copy paste a link that is going to provide me access to a little form that we host on Amazon. Okay. So just going to close this one. So let's open this case. If I pass this link to Amazon, as you can see, I just have a little form here. Let's imagine it's the accounting system. And you may want this form to be, I would say, filled automatically when the agent is searching for something in order not to have to fill again and stuff. So what we did in this Amazon application, we added a listener. And if I'm searching for Tim Bargain, if I click on his name, so the fire event is triggered here. And as you can see, in this third-party application, still displaying a frame, everything is built with the same UI integration pattern using the Sales Class Integration Toolkit. And it's very simple to implement. So that's a great use case, and that's a great example on how you can really integrate many different third-party applications in the console and how to, I would say, communicate between different systems. So a few information on how you can bring external application into the Salesforce console. So of course, you need to be able to customize your external app, meaning you need to be able to add some JavaScript in it. You will have to add a listener in this external application. That makes sense. Another thing that is important, does your external application work when framed? A good example is Google, for example. If you want to have a link to Google, Google doesn't allow to be framed. Bing is allowing it, so this is why in our example we were able to provide a link to Bing. And a very good UI integration pattern as well is to provide some parameters in the link. So this is what we did with Bing. Actually, during the search, we provided the case subject, and that if you can do it with application, that's another good way to integrate with it. Now, a few gotchas. There is no initial tick check on JavaScript upon saving, so you need to know that. Please test it on multiple browsers. You may be surprised that sometimes on IE it may not work. A good way to debug is to use some alerts. So it's a good way to do it in JavaScript to know if your listener is working well, if your event is fired. Of course, don't forget to include the resource in your Visual Force page with a link to the integration toolkit JavaScript. And a last gotcha is the thing is to leverage some Google Chrome developer tools to debug JavaScript. And this one is pretty awesome. And so now we have last UI integration pattern. And so if you want to go ahead, chat.
Sure, yeah. So the last one we want to touch on is browser session storage. This is a great pattern, especially for screen pops or incoming calls when you are provided with a nanny, a first name and last name, but you don't necessarily have enough context to create a contact record, you may want to just throw that somewhere in a place where your presentation can go and access it later and present it to the user or create a contact when you're ready to do that. So this pattern is really just leveraging local storage within your browser to tuck away that information until you're ready to go and grab it. The nice approach, it's extremely fast is a very huge benefit of it because it's all client-based. Again, no information sent over the wire. It's all JavaScript-based. You can fetch that information and set that information very quickly. No record storage is required, so you don't have to persist Salesforce database records or create records anywhere else. It doesn't require any receiving page to be open. Your browser's local storage is always going to be available to you in most environments, so you can leverage that as a way for persisting of data. Some considerations to think about is if you are in an environment where you are managing multiple cases at the same time and have multiple primary tabs open, if you use this pattern, you'll need to consider how you manage that state just to make sure that the right set of data is associated with the right tab. It also persists globally regardless of whether the page is closed. You'll need to make sure that you clear that data as you need it cleared. So let's just show a quick example on how you can leverage this pattern with a demonstration.
Yeah, so very fast here. So still in my demo environment. So at the bottom here, so we have the live agent available here, and we have a little CTI custom integration. So if I click on it, I can simulate some call, etc. And I may not want to do any DML operation in Salesforce during this call because you want to keep it fast and you don't want to store anything until the call is ended. So this is where you can really store some information in the browser, and then at the end of the call, this is where you're going to store this information in Salesforce. And so I'm not going to showcase it entirely, but I just want to show you that, for example, here, if I inspect this element here, in the resources, I can see my local storage, and as you can see, all the call details are stored actually in the browser. And I could definitely use, like in this page in Salesforce, in the Visual Purpose, I could definitely retrieve this information from the browser, or even directly from this API integration. And at the end of it, I could store this information, do a DML operation in Salesforce, and that would be the best way to do it. I mean, so every time you have like a lot of things to handle, a lot of logic to manipulate in the browser, that's the best UI integration you can do here.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you, Clement. So in summary, you have standard Salesforce components available to you to leverage within the framework, and we hope we've conveyed that you can very easily include standard objects, standard page layouts within your console. But if you have demanding requirements where you have users within a fast-paced environment, you are trying to consolidate that old legacy app that you didn't have time to consume within Salesforce, this provides a pattern for you to bridge all of those disparate components. So this custom functionality provides your developers greater control over the user experience and makes external applications play nicely within the console. And notice, without the use of web services. In nowhere have we discussed using web services to integrate with your telephony or external applications. These are all client-to-client-based UI patterns, which, again, have huge advantages from a security perspective, from a performance perspective, from a development speed to market perspective. So just a couple of resources for everyone as takeaways. Check out the Service Cloud Integration Toolkit Developer's Guide. This lists every method within the Service Cloud Integration Toolkit, along with code examples and syntax. If you're not already a JavaScript guru, check out W3 Schools. This is really the best reference for JavaScript methods and syntax to use that is cross-browser compliant. And then also check out Canvas app events specifically within the Canvas Developer Guide if you're looking for approach to embed that external app. Canvas is a great pattern for that, and there's plenty of additional resources on Canvas out there as well. And then don't forget our upcoming events. Mobile is really kicking up, as you probably know. So we have a lot of mobile events coming up, mobile SDK, iOS, mobile code talk, and Android, as well as sessions on the metadata API, Apex Code Talk, and from Sandbox to Production Part 2. So we have about 10 minutes left for some questions. Approximately, what is the cost per month to have access to the Service Console? Reach out to your sales reps for details on pricing. If you don't already know, Salesforce has announced a new edition, Performance Edition, and if you obtain Performance Edition, all of these features, Knowledge, Service Cloud, Live Agent are all included with Performance Edition. The Service Cloud Console Integration Toolkit, is it available for users that don't have Service Cloud Console licenses? The answer is no. The Service Cloud Console Integration Toolkit is designed to be used within the context of the console itself. How do I achieve making case records in italics when a user is working it? I think Clement demonstrated that. So push notifications is a great way to raise events to your users when somebody else is working on it. So he showed one flavor of push notifications. There's also another option you have when you're configuring push notifications to just notify that the record is being worked by another user or it's being touched by another entity. Can we refresh the whole page through an iframe? I'm assuming that means can you refresh the component within an iframe, and the answer is yes. There are some native JavaScript methods that allow you to refresh an iframe, or I should say a page within an iframe. So check out the W3 Schools reference on how you can go about doing that.
So, Chad, I think the first question that is pretty interesting is, can the push notification refresh the case listing in the panel? That means like remove cases dynamically if they are real-time, not just the data itself. So actually, with the push notification, you have the option to just refresh the list at the row level or the entire list, meaning that if a case has been real-time, it won't appear in the list anymore. So you can definitely do that.
So if you want something fast with less processing speed, is JavaScript the only way? Why not native Visualforce? So some of the patterns that we touched on actually do not require JavaScript. So the out-of-the-box refresh of the custom console components can be used in conjunction with native Visualforce. So for example, if you update the detail record of a case, you can very easily get a refresh that will completely re-trigger the constructor of your native Visualforce page. And if you're using a standard controller, which is simply referencing the detail record, it's automatically provided the ID of the detail record. So you can absolutely leverage native Visualforce. If, for whatever reason the action your user does is not an update to the detail record, you can use JavaScript to trigger a refresh and again leverage whatever native Visualforce or Apex logic that you've implemented just simply by leveraging JavaScript just for the refresh. But you don't necessarily have to build all your logic within JavaScript. It's more of a communication channel to bridge existing logic that you already have in Visualforce external pages or standard pages. Which edition is Salesforce coming up with? Can you repeat the name? The name is Performance Edition. So check out our website, www.salesforce.com. Performance Edition is, again, includes the Service Cloud, which we're very excited about.
There is a question about knowledge. Can we embed custom knowledge tab in console, in case console? Actually, you have many ways to do it. You could have your knowledge tab. There is a standard functionality for that. You could use a custom component to display it. And you could use the integration toolkit to open dynamically a tab. So exactly what we demoed today. So actually, you have many ways to relate your knowledge base to the case with the console. Many different ways. It really depends on what your agent prefer. We have different flavors for that. So thanks everyone for listening out. I hope you really enjoyed the webinar, and don't forget the upcoming very nice event, new developer webinar. So thank you all.